Meeting of the Senate Finance Committee for Monday, April 21st will come to order. This is going to be a busy week for this committee, so hope members can be here. We are switching the order today of the bills. We're going to start with Senator Latz's Department of Corrections Budget Deficiencies Appropriation. Welcome to the Senate Finance Committee, Senator Latz.
Thank you, Senator Marty and members. Appreciate being here today. Senate File 3196 is the Department of Corrections deficiency request. The fiscal impact is $9.091 million and then a $10 million reallocation in fiscal year 25. The DOC is requesting $9.1 million from the state's general fund, as well as legislative approval to reallocate $10 million in already appropriated funds to address their budget shortfall for fiscal year 25. The DOC has made significant progress in addressing its staffing challenges, increasing its staffing levels from 99% to 99% from just 76% in 2020. This has been better for the safety of the correctional officers as well as for the residents of the corrections system. However, these improvements have led to increased budgetary pressures, which have contributed to the agency's budget deficit. The DOC has traditionally relied on vacancy savings, funds saved due to unfilled positions, to cover their budgetary needs, but obviously this practice is no longer a viable solution or strategy. The combination of the staffing improvements and the rising costs associated with retaining staff has created a funding shortfall that needs immediate attention. And without these requested funds, the DOC will face a severe operational challenge, potentially jeopardizing their ability to meet their financial obligations as soon as June of 2025. And that's why this bill is traveling separately on its own, independent from the Omnibus Judiciary and Public Safety Budget Bill. This bill will ensure the sustained, safe, and efficient operation of Minnesota's prisons and the continuance of services that are crucial to the rehabilitation of incarcerated individuals. I ask your support, and I have experts here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Latz. I wonder if we should hear from the Commissioner briefly first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paul Schnell, Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Corrections. As Chair Latz mentioned, this is a critical funding need for the agency. In addition to the agency experiencing this influx in hiring, which is good news, has been a challenge since 2019 and even years prior to that the agency struggled with staffing, allowing us to rely on vacancies to manage our budget. That is no longer the case, as was mentioned. In addition, it has been historical practice over many years for the agency to pursue supplemental funding requests to address the increased costs associated with staffing and contract settlements. Which ultimately also both helped us with increasing our staffing levels and helping us to be more competitive in this marketplace, but has created the challenge we currently face. With that, Mr. Chair, I would stand for any questions you or the committee may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Dragan.
Thank you, Chair Marty. I might have missed it, Senator Latz. The $9 million is coming out of the target, or is not coming out of the target?
Mr. Turner.
Mr. Chairman, members, the $9 million is now currently housed in the Judiciary and Public Safety target, and we're carrying that in our bill as well as we've separated the deficiency off here and it's running separately, but the $9 million is currently in the target, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So the, I think the 106 number then would be reduced by the 9.01. Is that my understanding?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Senator Latz, for bringing this forward. I know St. Peter is right across the river from my district, and I have a lot of people that work there that say that it's a real problem having not enough employees. So I'm glad we're trying to adjust it. Thank you.
We have an A1 amendment. I believe this is to make the bill conform with the budget rules that we've talked about earlier in this committee. Is that correct, Mr. Turner or Representative Latz?
Mr. Chairman, members, yes. It's a technical amendment to Section 1 of the bill that rewords the reallocation language for the 3 DOC divisions within the bill to make it comport with budget rules on transfers and appropriations.
Okay. Senator Friends moves the A1 technical amendment. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. I will note that a quorum is present. Further discussion, Mr. Turner, did you have anything to add about the numbers?
Mr. Chairman, no.
Okay. Is there any further discussion of the bill? If not, Senator Latz, any other words?
No, Your,
If not,
I was going to
Senator.
say no, Your Honor. No, Mr. Chair. It's habit.
You can tell who the attorneys are in the room always. Senator Friends moves that Senate File 3196 as amended be recommended to pass. Is there discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Senator Latz.
Thank you.
Mr. Turner and Commissioner. Senator Klein. Commerce Appropriations Bill. We'll note that we're handing out the budget rules that we discussed at length in committee, and that last amendment was to conform with that, but we are trying to make sure all the budgets do conform with the budget rules, and I believe the staff has made sure they do. So with that, welcome to the Finance Committee and Senator Klein on the Commerce Appropriations Bill.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for hearing Senate File 2216, which is the Commerce Appropriations and Office of Cannabis Management Appropriations Bill for this year. I can give you a 30,000-foot overview of the finance provisions in the bill. 4 of your members sit on the Commerce Committee, so they are already wise to this. And then I have 2 or possibly 3 amendments to submit to the wisdom of the committee. Here are the things that are financial provisions, fiscal provisions within 2216. There is a new fee increase for broker-dealer agents, people who analyze people's investments and provide them investment advice in the state of Minnesota, increasing the fee from its baseline in an effort to improve staffing at the Department of Commerce to add additional agents to investigate misrepresentation or fraud within that business. There is the Department of Commerce operating adjustment, and the numbers are in your packet. There is the creation of a common interest community ombudsperson and a registry. This is your bill, Chair Marty, that addresses the issue of HOAs in the state of Minnesota, their lack of oversight and regulation, creating both a registry and an ombudsperson, and funding this through a fee on every HOA of $55 per year. There is the transfer of the Department of Commerce Fraud Bureau over to the BCA, which should be budget neutral for the state of Minnesota overall, just moves it out of my jurisdiction candidly into Senator Latz's jurisdiction. There is a new fee on electric vehicle supply equipment, allowing the Department of Commerce to assess $100 on each electric vehicle charging station in the state of Minnesota and use those funds then to sort of regulate and monitor those facilities the same way they would a gas pump. And you see the sticker on the gas pumps. Hopefully someday you'll see the sticker on the EV charging stations. There is an operating adjustment for the Office of Cannabis Management. And there is extension of the Can Renew grants within the Office of Cannabis Management, budget neutral, extending those forward. Chair Marty, almost said Dr. Marty, those are the provisions of financial relevance within the bill. And then I have two amendments I'd like to suggest to the committee. The first is the A35, which was written by nonpartisan counsel and simply corrects inaccurate effective dates, corrects erroneous cross-references, places articles which are in the wrong statute into the correct statute. One in particular on page 2 puts Senator Dame's provisions within the correct area of statute. Non-controversial provisions in the A35, if one of your members would be willing to offer that.
Sorry, we're getting the A35 handed out right now, so we'll give members a minute to get that. And this is Senator Dames is moving the amendment. Okay. Senator Dames, I'm told you're offering the amendment. Do you have any comments on it or to add to it?
No, I don't, Mr. Chair, but I do offer the amendment.
Okay. Is there further discussion from what Senator Klein mentioned of the amendment, the A35? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Senator Klein, you had another one you wanted to do right now?
Chair Marty, yes. The bill as currently written is not in balance, specifically with the area that I discussed addressing the fee on broker-dealers. Our current fee on broker-dealers in the state of Minnesota is $25. The bill is written proposed to increase that fee to $60 a year. It was felt that this would sustain 3 additional FTEs within the Department of Commerce. However, when they went back and did the math, they informed me that this will not cover the cost of 3 additional FTEs. It'll cover 1.7 FTEs only in that provision. It would decrease our expected appropriations for that function from $441,000 a year down to $269,000 a year, Senator. Chair, I have brought 2 ideas forward to the committee for the wisdom of the committee to consider. In the A31, which is my preferred amendment, the existing $25 fee would be increased not to $60, but to $85. This would keep the appropriation close to the same and would fully fund the additional 3 FTEs that we had planned to do. If the committee rejects the A31, I do have prepared the A30, Chair, which would simply decrease the appropriation from $441,000 a year down to $269,000 a year, and would only fund 1.7 FTEs at the Department of Commerce for that function. Again, my preference would be that one of your members would offer and then pass the A31, but there are 2 options before the committee.
And so, Senator Klein, the A31 would fund the 3 positions then? Okay. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair Marty. Senator Klein, we're increasing the existing fee, is that correct?
Chair and Senator Draheim, that's correct.
So I'm a little confused why we need more FTEs. You know, I mean, the dollars are bigger, but it doesn't change. You know, my recommendation is we leave it at the $60 or whatever the increase is, and my understanding has been 18, 20 years since the fee's gone up. So I understand raising it a little bit, but I have a hard time to raise it just because we need to hire more people to do the same job. So, Chair, I would not support the 831. I would support language that would have the agency absorb any extra costs. I just don't understand why it would cost more to count money. You know, comes in and it goes into a spreadsheet. There's no reason we need to hire more FTEs. Thank you.
Either Commissioner Senator Klein or Krista.
Chair, I can have the commissioner speak to that. It was represented to me that this really is a significant area where Minnesotans are being defrauded of their investments. An additional 3 FTEs would empower the department significantly in sort of protecting Minnesotans. But I'm glad to turn it over to Commissioner to
Commissioner, welcome to the committee, and please identify yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Marty. Members, I'm Grace Arnold. I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Commerce. So I'll start with, this is a $12 billion industry, so $12 billion of Minnesotans' assets are overseen, are managed by a few different kinds of license types that fall within our securities division. We have seen a big increase in fraud in this area in particular. So from 23 to 24, there was an estimate nationwide, but we can, sort of extrapolate that to Minnesota of 24% increase. That's $5.7 billion across the country. So when we have more examiners, I think Senator Draheim, to your point, we have a finite number of individuals or companies. We go through them, kind of as we can. And right now, I believe we're at 9 years. So your investment advisor, if you go with an investment advisor, gets their finances looked at every 9 or 10 years. If we have more people, that brings it down so they're examined more frequently. That means that we're catching fraud more frequently. We're making sure that, when you're investing, that you are, you can kind of count that your investments are there and that you're not susceptible to scams. I think the other thing that I'll just say is that when we look at increasing fees, we really try to make sure that, in particular, we're evaluating ourselves next to Midwest zone, like the Midwestern states. That's often, to the extent there are people who are doing business in multiple states, that's kind of the competition. So I can just quickly, so North Dakota is $60, South Dakota is $125 for these folks, Illinois is $150, and Wisconsin is $80. So this puts us like squarely kind of in the middle of that, of those clusters. We were by far the lowest prior with $25. That's, significantly lower. Hopefully that's helpful to just kind of understand what the work is and what the funding would do.
And Senator Draheim, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. I guess, the fee isn't my problem. I understand after so many years you have to raise the fee. Even examining every 9 years, 8 years, whatever it is, how many people have been prosecuted? I mean, is this an ongoing problem in Minnesota where we're actually prosecuting financial planners?
Commissioner.
Yeah, Senator Marty, I can get back to you with the exact. It represents we do see a number of referrals out. It's higher than I would like, and so but I can get the exact numbers to you. Again, it's like a 23% from increase nationwide from 23 to 24. We have similar. These are areas where there are differences from states, but you don't want to have one state having a wholly different, like there's a national organization that kind of works to make sure that there's some harmony across the country to make sure that consumers are reasonably well, similarly protected. And I don't have any reason to think that we have less fraud in that area than other states from that like national statistic that I cited.
So my point being is that, I haven't seen anything in the news about prosecuting the bad actors. And that's kind of what I was getting after. I mean, a little fine's one thing, but if they're bad people, we should be putting them away. And I just haven't seen that. So I don't know what a couple more FTEs will do if we're not going to prosecute. So thank you.
Senator Chair Marty and Senator Draheim, we can send you some.
Is there further discussion on, we don't have, Senator Murphy, can you offer the amendment first and then speak to it?
Thanks, Senator Marty. I am happy to offer the A31. And Senator Marty and members, it is clear to me that this legislature has taken a strong stand on the issue of fraud and fighting it. And it sounds to me what is being proposed in Senator Klein's bill in this amendment is a strong attempt to fight fraud that Minnesotans are experiencing. And I think that if we are serious about fighting fraud, then this is a proposal that meets that test, and we should support it.
Is there further discussion on the A31 amendment? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for showing up late. I was wondering if I could get just a little explanation. I see a number of changes to the dollar amounts here and how that everything balances out to the targets.
Mr. Nauman.
Mr. Chair, I can let
Oh,
Ms. Boyd.
Ms. Boyd, go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought you were reaching for your mic. I thought, go ahead, Ms. Boyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt. This is acknowledging a difference in revenue for the higher fee, and then appropriating that revenue, it's net zero. So that would just changing all the appropriations on the upper part of the amendment. It still is with it. This is actually fixing the target issue that arose as a result of the error found. So.
Further discussion on A31 amendment. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion prevails. Let's make a call. Senator Klein, your other amendment was an alternative. Or do you have any
Mr.
other
Chair?
amendments?
Division?
Could Ms.
Division.
Division has been requested. All those who are in favor of the A31 amendment, say, raise your hand. Those opposed? By a 6-4, 6 votes in favor, 4 opposed, the motion does prevail. Ms. Boyd, can you go through the budget items for us?
Mr. Chair, I will run through the change items that are marked in blue on the spreadsheet and point them out. The first is on line 18 in the Financial Institutions Division. This is all within the Department of Commerce, and I'm focusing on the Senate columns, which are to the right of the spreadsheet. So line 18 is an appropriation, as we discussed, for the increased staffing in the Division Securities Unit. That would be changed as a result of the A31 amendment, but this is a net zero for the general fund piece of the bill if you incorporate the revenue line down below. Let's see. So I'll move on to line 33 is in the Administrative Services Division. Line 33 is the agency's operating adjustments to address inflationary cost increases. The Senate appropriations are, let's see, $2.585 million in the first biennium and $3.726 million ongoing starting in 28-29. Lines 34 through 36 concern the proposed Common Interest Community, or CIC, HOA, Ombudsperson, and Registry. Line 34 appropriates $348,000 each year for staffing of the Ombudsperson office. This is about 1.7 FTE. This includes a senior staff attorney and communications specialist as well. Line 35 appropriates $525,000 in fiscal year 26 and $25,000 a year thereafter for the development and maintenance costs of the HOA registry. Oh, and I should mention that these are all general fund appropriations unless I say otherwise. Line 36 appropriates $132,000 in fiscal year 26 and $37,000 a year thereafter for staffing related to the CIC registry. This would be 0.75 FTE in the first year and 0.25 thereafter. In the first year, there is some one-time minute staffing to support the development of the registry and ongoing 0.25 FTE to assist with registration questions, et cetera. And again, these ongoing appropriations are offset by revenue from the registration fee mentioned by Senator Klein of $55 per year for the HOAs. And that revenue is on line 145 of the spreadsheet. So lines 48, 52, and 55 are in the Enforcement Division of the Department of Commerce, and these are all related to the transfer of the fraud staffing to the BCA at the Department of Public Safety. These amounts will, as mentioned, be carried in the Judiciary and Public Safety spreadsheet, so there's a net zero to the overall budget. This includes a general fund reduction of about $1.1 million a year, a workers' comp fund appropriation of $215,000 a year reduction, and the statutory appropriation from the Special Revenue Fund, from the Auto Theft Prevention Account, and the Insurance Fraud Prevention Account, and that's about $8.1 million a year on line 55. Next, on line 92 in the insurance division is a reduction of a fiscal year 26 base amount from the Family and Medical Benefit Insurance account, $64,000. So that appropriation from that account is now zero for all years. Line 114 is in the Weights and Measures division. It's a statutory appropriation from the newly created Electric Vehicle Supply Equipment Program account in the bill. That account is funded through an annual $100 inspection fee per retail charging port. And this is a statutory appropriation to fund the inspection, staffing, and other costs. And we move on to the Office of Cannabis Management on page 3 of the spreadsheet. Line 129 are operating adjustments of $724,000 in 26 and 27, and $1.142 million in 28 and 29 and ongoing. Lines 130 and 131 is a carry forward amount from fiscal year 25 of $1 million for Can Renew grants at OCM. And then one other item I'll mention is that an amendment that I believe was adopted last week in the Commerce Committee has costs for the PUC, for the Public Utilities Commission. This is on lines 140 and 151. This is related to allowing a telephone company or telecommunications carrier to submit a petition to the Commission for a customer transition plan to discontinue telecommunications service related to VoIP service. So the Commission may assess fees for those costs. So this is an offset of $261,000 each year from the fee assessment revenue and the statutory appropriation at PUC. And then if you look on the last page of the spreadsheet, there are revenue items that I've mentioned previously, but I can answer questions about any of them. And then the bottom line shows the over target of $344,000 in each biennium. That is taken care of in the A31 amendment that was adopted. So that will be zero, meeting target now.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just curious, when we look at line 41 through line 48, I see that we have operating costs, we have costs for Commerce Fraud Bureau body cams, and some of these other costs. Is that separate? Is that separate from the group that we transferred over to the transferred out of the Commerce Fraud Bureau?
Ms. Boyd or whoever.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Dames. The 1.115 in each year reduction from the general fund is includes line 43, the peace officers, lines 44, the body-worn cameras, and 47, the salary increases that were part of the last budget bill. So those three lines add up to the reduction. So those will be gone from base hereafter.
Thank you.
Further questions from the committee? If not, Senator Friends moves Senate file.
Chair.
Go ahead. Oh, you had Senator, I'm sorry.
I thought we were just
Cut off
talking
this
about the
question. No, go ahead.
spreadsheet.
No, go ahead, continue.
Okay, I have the
I thought it was a little
A36.
fast. Okay.
Yeah. The A36 I'd like to offer.
A36 will be offered in just a second.
If I could, Chair, to talk to the A36
Go ahead, you might as
while we're
well
waiting.
speak to it while it's being distributed.
Yeah, thank you. It real simple, members. It just adds one item to the list on page 89, a clarification. There is the cadmium bill that I had earlier. Thank you, Senator Klein, for hearing that in your committee and including it in your bill. After the hearing, some folks reached out to me, 100-year-old company that makes pots with lids on them, and there's a couple colors that use that same paint. It's encapsulated on the outside. It is not on the surface which touches food. Very high-end product, very colorful product. And this just adds that to the list that is excluded from the previous bill. So hopefully it will be taken as a friendly amendment.
Senator Klein on the A36.
Chair Marty and Senator Draheim, thank you, Senator Draheim, for doing some good work on cadmium paints this year. Learned a lot in the Commerce Committee about how they expound specifically vivid colors. They are used by this one cookware product, which I think we all know who we're talking about here. They are not in contact with food or eating surfaces, and they're essential to the branding of this product in the state of Minnesota, and I support the A36.
Is there other discussion from the committee? If not, Senator Draheim moves the A36 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. There are other amendments I should ask then? Okay, other comments on the bill? Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair, and once again, thank you, Senator Klein, for working on a lot of good stuff in here. I would like to touch a little bit about the meta gap, and thank you for the hearing on my bill addressing that. And for members that aren't familiar with that, supplemental insurance products that are taken out normally when you hit 65. You have 6 months to take out this insurance. And the discussion we had in committee and from testifiers is that when the state did their research on the proposed changes, it would raise the cost of that supplemental insurance 20% over 5 years. And Blue Cross Blue Shield, running their numbers, who have the majority of the insurance products in Minnesota, came up with a much higher percentage, and I believe it was 90% over 5 years. So the truth lies somewhere between that 20 and 90. And to me here, we're trying to help people by getting more people on insurance, but what good would it do if they can't afford the insurance? So I have concerns with this section of the bill, Senator Klein. It's better, but I don't think it's the real solution. So I hope as you move this through the process and in conference committee, we can reevaluate that section of the bill and maybe come up with a better solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dames and Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Klein, for bringing the bill forward. I do have a concern on the piece of the bill that changes the number of days that insurance companies have to issue a notice of cancellation. Currently, that's at 20 days, and I believe the bill is now going to be moving it to 30 days. And I really think that I've been here 15 years, and I've not had a single call from a constituent talking about the fact that 20 days wasn't long enough, or that we should go to 30, 40, or any other number of days. Having been in insurance business for many, many years, I've never had any complaints from clients about having the 20-day notice. I've had complaints from clients not wanting their insurance canceled, absolutely, but not about the number of days and the time. So what it amounts to is, by changing this from 20 to 30 days, we're putting the insurance companies, we're getting insurance companies, giving them exposures that they have for another 10 days. And whether we believe it or not, it does drive up the cost of insurance. And I think that this was probably put in, I think this bill was brought forward because one individual experienced some issues. And so I would ask that somewhere along the line that this be taken out, because I think that we're making a decision here based on one individual's opinion. And I doubt that many people here have had complaints about the number of days. In fact, I'm sure most of the people at this table didn't realize how many days that even was. And so I hope that we can get that corrected before this bill becomes law. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Klein.
Senator Klein, any comments? Okay. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Klein. You run a great committee, and I want to start by thanking you for your emphasis on the costs to Minnesotans. I think that's been a strength of yours, especially in healthcare. Thank you, Commissioner. Thanks for everybody who worked on the bill. Just a couple observations, Mr. Chair. When we raise fees, Minnesotans are going to say, are you trying to make things more expensive or less? I think you've justified the fees. I'll be a yes vote on the bill, but I think it's worth keeping that in mind. Minnesotans are cost conscious, and I think they send us that message in a lot of different ways. Mr. Chair, just want to say I remain a yes bill despite some policy questions, and I think your pledge, Mr. Chair, and by that I mean Chair Klein, to work on the policy issues is commendable. This is the Finance Committee where we talk about finance, but I can't help noting the letter of opposition from AARP. That's part of the game, right? Constituencies weigh in. We've got the 62J mandate. I think streamlining is probably the right word, but we've had some calls on that. And, the free water provided at the venues, I like to go to those venues. I get dehydrated. But in committee, we had some questions raised about whether that is. Long story short, Mr. Chair and members, while the policy in here isn't universally supported, I'll be a yes vote on sending this bill out and look forward to the continued work. Thank you, Senator Klein, and thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Drahan.
Thank you, Chair. And Senator Klein, I just want to echo what Senator French said about the bottled water or water at, as someone that hosted events much larger than the 100 people that you have in the bill, it does raise a lot of concerns, as a venue owner, you are responsible, and it makes it much harder to police, especially the underage crowd, the 19 and 20-year-olds, what they're bringing in, liability. I know I've been to a lot of events where they hand you a bottle of water or a bottle of pop, they take the cap away because they don't want it to end up on the court or arena or rink or where, depending on what you're at. I've been in multiple ones where they take that away. So I do think it needs to be fleshed out. I understand the concept. I know the young people especially drink a ton of water and they have their water bottles with them at all times. I get that. But it does raise some security and other issues. So I hope that can get fleshed out better, or maybe we'll table till next year. So thank you.
Thank you. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just wanted to echo my concerns over that particular issue. We have, in our community, we have an event called the Lakefront Music Fest. We, for security reasons, prohibit anything coming in. It gets thrown at the artist. We don't know that it's not an underage kid bringing in clear alcohol or anything like that, and it's hard for us to know if it's factory sealed or not. I mean, we have some professional security staff, we have some volunteer, and it becomes a real problem. And then when we say at no cost to attendees, this is a fundraising effort for our community. I think we sell it at a very low price, but it would have a significant impact on what we're able to do. And not only does Rotary add to their ability to give, but we also support somewhere around 30 other local organizations doing work in our community. I'm hoping that this is something that can be readdressed later on. Thank you, Senator Klein.
Senator Klein.
Chair and members, thank you for bringing the water issue back to the table. I think it's worth the attention of every senator in our legislature to think about this and trying to strike the balance. What we had heard was that Minnesotans were going to large outdoor events, particularly in the summer. They would be sort of ticketed in and they wouldn't be able to leave, and then the only access they had to beverages was through a $7 or a $10 water that they could purchase. And as a physician, it didn't seem consistent with public health that we would put people in that circumstance. We definitely heard the feedback that these bottles can then be used as a projectile, particularly something like this could be physically dangerous. That is why in the bill we provide 3 different opportunities for venue holders to either just give people water with a little Dixie cup, or they can allow them to bring in an empty water bottle, or they can place any restrictions regarding entertainer safety on the bottled waters that they want. So we tried to strike the right balance. I think it's an important issue, and if I didn't get it quite right, I'm open to the wisdom of the committee.
Thank you. Further discussion, if not, Senator Friends moves Senate File 2216 as amended be recommended to pass. Is there further discussion on that motion? If not, and instruct the staff to make technical and conforming changes. On that motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Senator Klein, Commissioner, Ms. Boyd, all the staff that have helped Senator Klein in putting this together, thank you very much. Your first bill out of the gate here today. Thank you. Senator, we have one more bill on the agenda, Senate File 2373, Senator McEwen, the labor bill. Senator McEwen, welcome to the Finance Committee with the labor budget bill. And we've got Commissioner Wissenbach here and Ms. Bursch. And Senator McEwen, you want to make your comments on the bill?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, members of the Finance Committee. Senate File 2373 is the budget bill for the Department of Labor and Industry, Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals, and the Bureau of Mediation Services. Just a brief summary of the bill. Article 1 is, of course, the appropriations, which provide for the Department of Labor and Industry, Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals, and the Bureau of Mediation Services. Article 2, Section 1, allows the Department of Labor and Industry to apply for a temporary restraining order in district court, which is an order enjoining and restraining violations of statutes and rules over which the Commissioner has compliance order authority. Sections 2 through 46 reflect the Department's construction codes and licensing fee alignment proposal. Many of the letters of support in your packets reflect broad support for this proposal. Article 3, Sections 1 through 5 includes the Governor's budget proposal to clarify employees' rights and employers' obligations under existing break laws and enact remedies for workers whose rights to their breaks are violated. Of note, Minnesota is one of few states that does not have a clear standard in statute addressing the amount of break time that must be provided to employees during the workday. So this proposal would enshrine that employees are entitled to at least 15 minutes of rest break time for every 4 consecutive hours worked and at least a 30-minute break, meal break for every 6 consecutive hours worked. Section 6 reflects language from Senate File 2360 instructing the Department to conduct a misclassification fraud impact report. It allows the Commissioners of Revenue, Employment and Economic Development, and Labor and Industry to coordinate and report on their analysis of the costs of misclassification of workers and the impact of misclassification on workers, government programs, and tax collections. It then directs Commissioners to report this analysis to the Legislature beginning January 15th, 2027, and then every odd-numbered year thereafter. Article 4 reflects agreement language that Senator Kupek and Senator Dornick worked out with stakeholders to update our broadband installation safety standards. And Mr. Chair, I do have 2 amendments, the A14 and the A16, when you're ready for that.
Senator McEwen, let's start with A14 because I see that's in the packets.
Very good.
So why don't you go ahead and explain that, and we will get the whatever it's 16, we'll get that distributed as well. Go ahead and Ms. Bursch or whoever is going to explain the A14.
Very good. I'll just in short, the A14 amendment is a technical amendment prepared by our fiscal analyst, Ms. Bursch, to reflect changes made by amendment in the Labor Committee. we had shifted the construction worker mental health program from labor standards to the construction codes and licensing division. And as you said, Mr. Chair, Ms. Bursch is here and could speak to that also. DLI could speak to that if there's questions about it.
Thank you. Ms. Bursch, anything to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think Senator McEwen covered it. It's a net zero change, relocating that $500,000 per year to the Construction Codes and Licensing Division, and then adjusting the top line totals for the Labor Standards Division.
Senator Friends moves a 14 technical amendment to make the numbers follow with what's planned in the bill. Is there any discussion of A14? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? No. Motion prevails. A16 has now been distributed. Go ahead if you
To
or
the
whoever wants to explain
A16.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The A16 amendment makes a cancellation of $1 million to the Clean Economy Apprenticeship Program grants and appropriates a portion of those funds to the misclassification fraud report in the bill, and adds a small amount of funding to the Apprenticeship Readiness Program, Building Strong Communities, and to the Career Pathways Pre-Apprenticeship Program, and aligns reporting requirement language as well. While we do not at this point have the funding levels sufficient to adequately cover all of these programs in complete form, I would like to include them in the bill to make sure that they are part of the conversation as the bill moves forward. Both Building Strong Communities and Career Pathways are bipartisan bills and are reflected here as they were heard in committee.
Is there discussion on the A16 amendment? If not, Senator Friends moves the A16 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? No. Motion prevails. Is there further amendments or just, if not, Ms. Bursch, you want to go through the budget things and then we can hear from the commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is my first time in this committee, so for the record, my name is Megan Bursch, and I'm the fiscal analyst supporting the Labor Committee. In your packets, you should have a spreadsheet titled Senate Labor Committee Omnibus Budget as Passed Labor Committee in the upper left-hand corner. And this spreadsheet documents the appropriations for every line item in Article 1 of the second engrossment of Senate File 2373, as well as the fiscal impacts of the policy items included in Articles 2 through 4, where those impacts exist. So as Senator McEwen mentioned, the agencies in the Labor Committee jurisdiction include the Department of Labor and Industry, the Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals, and the Bureau of Mediation Services. Lines 1 through 40 of the spreadsheet show a high-level summary of expenses and new revenues by fund for each of these agencies. I think the biggest takeaway here is that the total changes in general fund expenditures on line 3 and general fund revenues on line 8 net to the Labor Committee targets of $1,357,000 in the 25 through 27, or no, fiscal years 25 through 27, and $798,000 in fiscal years 28 and 29. And that's reflected on the top right of the page. So I'll move to a review of the change items that contribute to these fund level impacts, starting on line 43 with the Department of Labor and Industry. On line 48, there's a $9,640,000 increase in the 26-27 biennium and a $9,788,000 increase in the 28-29 biennium from the General Fund for Labor Standards Division operating. This reflects a combination of an operating adjustment of $476,000 in the 26-27 biennium and $624,000 in the 28-29 biennium, and also the consolidation of all general fund base appropriations in the Labor Standards Division. So the general fund appropriations on lines 49 down through line 55 on page 2 that appear to have been eliminated are actually just consolidated into that operating line item. On lines 57 and 58, $25,000 of the $27,000 fiscal year 2024 appropriation from the general fund for the Veterans Benefits and Services poster is canceled in fiscal year 25 and carried forward as a revenue in fiscal year 26 on line 118. On line 61, the one-time $366,000 appropriation in fiscal year 26 from the Family and Medical Benefit Insurance Fund for Minnesota paid leave is eliminated. On line 65, there's a workers' compensation fund operating adjustment for the workers' compensation division of $4,078,000 in the 26-27 biennium and $4,388,000 in the 28-29 biennium. On lines 71 and 72, $214,000 of the $2 million fiscal year 2024 appropriation from the general fund for the Ergonomic Safety Grant Program is canceled in fiscal year 2025 and carried forward as a revenue in fiscal year 2026 on line 121. On line 97, there's a $1 million one-time general fund appropriation in the 26-27 biennium for construction industry mental health initiatives. On lines 99 and 100, the authority for the $225,000 one-time general fund appropriation for the single egress stairway apartment building report in fiscal year 2025 is extended for one additional fiscal year through fiscal year 2026. And on line 105, there's a $4,164,000 increase in the 26-27 biennium and a $4,292,000 increase in the 28-29 biennium in the statutory appropriation for the construction code fund. This corresponds to an estimated construction code fund revenue increase of $25,493,000 in the 26-27 biennium and $25,602,000 in the 28-29 biennium on line 124. And these are the result of a proposed construction codes and licensing division fee adjustment that's included in Article 2 of Senate File 2373. Moving on to the Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals on line 108, there's a Workers' Compensation Fund operating adjustment of $731,000 in the 26-27 biennium and $664,000 in the 28-29 biennium. And last but not least, the Bureau of Mediation Services, starting on line 111. There's a general fund operating adjustment of $160,000 in the 26-27 biennium and $214,000 in the 28-29 biennium. And that also includes increases for the Public Employment Relations Board on line 113 of $32,000 in the 26-27 biennium and $42,000 in the 28-29 biennium. And then on page 3, I've mentioned all these revenues but one, and that's on line 125. There's a $40,000 per biennium increase in general fund revenues associated with the mandatory break laws policy item that's included in Article 3 of the bill. That concludes my review of the spreadsheet, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from Ms. Bursch? If not, maybe we could hear from Commissioner Wissenbach.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nicole Blissenbach, and I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry, and I'm here to testify in support of Senate File 2373. First, I want to thank Chair McEwen for including many of the department's priorities in this bill. These include the construction codes and licensing fee alignment proposal, which will enable the department to continue to provide timely and high-quality plan review and inspection services for electrical systems, elevators, plumbing, boilers, and manufactured structures. I'd like to thank the many construction industry stakeholders who worked with us to refine these proposals. The workers' compensation and general fund operating adjustments will help the department to maintain the services Minnesotans expect in those areas. Changes in Article 4 will strengthen mandatory break laws, provide clear standards for the amount of time that must be provided to employees for meal and rest breaks, and provide clear remedies when these standards are violated. These changes will help ensure that employers understand their obligations and employees understand their rights regarding meal and rest breaks. Language in Article 2, Section 1 establishes authority for the Department of Labor and Industry to apply in district court for an order restraining an employer from violations of employment laws under the department's jurisdiction. This will allow the department to take swift action to help ensure protection of workplace rights. And then finally, the extension of funding for the single egress stairway apartment building report, which will provide sufficient time for the department to complete the study. I am disappointed that several of the department's priorities are not included in this bill, such as funding to establish a statewide teacher apprenticeship program, which would provide critical statewide infrastructure for school districts across the state to connect to consistent, high-quality teacher apprenticeship programming, creating an additional pathway into education and helping to address the teacher shortage. Also, misclassification enforcement funding, which would help fund the department's enforcement of worker misclassification laws that protect workers' access to overtime, minimum wage, workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, earn sick and save time, and more, as well as level the playing field for law-abiding employers. And then finally, funding for grants to certified worker organizations to support them in training nursing home workers. I understand that there are fiscal pressures this year, and I'm hopeful that funding these priorities can be found as the legislative session continues. But thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Questions from the Commissioner? I have one from Ms. Bursch, and that is something I'm supposed to be asking all the budget analysts and so on, and that's if the bill complies with the Senate budget rules.
Thank you, Chair Marty. Yes, I believe it does.
Are there other questions? Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. You know, right now we're facing a housing crunch, and you know, manufactured homes seems to be probably the most economical way. Many people are finding housing besides rental. And as I look at this, there's significant increases in all the manufactured home fees for inspections, plan reviews, seal installations. And I know in here it says that third-party vendors or those places that have their state built their own code officials can do their own thing as far as fees. But most of us out there look to the state and we just kind of follow the state and their fees. These are significant increases at a time when I find that troubling as we try to find affordable housing out there, and this is one of those avenues. I find it troubling when I look at the amount of the increase from like $30 to $70, $80 to $325. These aren't just a little bit. These are significant. Can you explain why we're doing that at this time in this economic piece that we're facing?
Commissioner, go ahead.
Chair and Senator, thank you for that question. I will just point out initially we worked very extensively with the stakeholders in all of these areas. The majority of the fees that are increased in this proposal have not been increased or touched since 2007. But we worked very closely, in fact, probably the closest with MMHA, the Minnesota Manufactured Modular Home Association. I may have mixed up two words there, to make sure that we reached a position with this version of the bill that met everybody's needs. So we don't have opposition to any of the proposed construction codes and licensing fees. And in fact, in your packets, I believe you will find letters from a number of stakeholders that are actually in support of the fees being increased, because what we will see if we don't increase these fees is less people to provide the service. And I think you know this, Senator Howe, that delays are actually more expensive than these increased fees are. And we want to provide the services at the level that people have come to expect from the department, and we believe that these fees get us to that point.
Follow up, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that, Commissioner. But you know, these are all the letters and the stakeholders that you said you met with are not the end user, because they don't pay any of those fees. All those fees are passed on to the ultimate consumer, which is the public, the people that are buying those mobile homes, the people that are moving into those manufactured homes. And I think that is who we didn't hear from. We heard from all the people those fees are all passed through. So when you talk about raising the cost of construction and the cost of housing, this goes directly to those people looking to buy and live in those manufactured homes. And I think I'll take this opportunity, when I look at the operating cost increases that we see in every bill. The consumer out there, the citizens of our state, are the ones that are ultimately paying that. And we sit here and we look at that. It's state government that is growing. It's state government that's making sure that their end is taken care of as our public continues to struggle. And that's my concern about all these bills and everything we see passing through, is we're not taking into consideration the actual consumer, the actual citizen that's actually going to pay these fee increases and operating increases. And that's my concern. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the Commissioner. You mentioned that there's a group of letters here attached for us to take a look at. I find it interesting that the majority, if not all of those letters, come from unions and union-based organizations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think nearly all of them did. I don't see a single one of them in here from a mobile home or a modular home manufacturer. And so when we say that we've got everybody on board, if everybody was on board, I would assume that at least one of the manufacturers would have put a letter in. And I don't see any in your packet. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mr. President, or thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, ma'am.
Chair Marty and Senator, MMHA did address the Labor Committee and did say in their testimony to the Labor Committee that they no longer opposed the fee proposal that the department was putting forward. But there are additional letters from, I believe the Electrical Association was included in the packets of letters, but we have worked with many stakeholders in addition to those that submitted letters that that may initially have had issues, and we worked to make sure that all of the issues that were brought to the department's attention were addressed in the current language of the bill.
Further discussion on the bill. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to start off by reiterating what Senator Howe was saying and Senator Dames, you know, I remember Commissioner Robertson always saying that, you know, her role was to be the and in labor and industry. And what I've seen over the last 2 years has not been a balance of any kind. It's been very slanted. I'm concerned that we effectively raise spending at the department, if my calculations are right on the summary of the spreadsheet, $102 million net of increased revenues. When we're facing a $3 billion structural deficit, and we are asking Minnesotans to pay more in fees and in across the board in many of these bills, I'm disappointed that we're not seeing more of a sacrifice within our agencies. It seems like the governor's proposed shifting, hundreds of millions of dollars onto counties that will end up being the largest property tax increase in state history, and yet we continue to increase the spending in all the various agencies. Mr. Chair, I would just ask Mr. Nauman a quick question on this and the previous bill, how those impact the bottom line.
Mr. Nauman.
So, Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, just maybe a follow-up clarification. Are you interested in what the bottom line is in the Senate position relative to all the bills that we've heard up at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that, so for members' purposes, the general fund budgetary balance was forecasted at $1.6 billion in the 25 through 27 budget period. And then the tails, it's a negative 2.379. I should clarify that's without inflation in any of the math.
So as it stands now, if you include the bill that is in front of you, the net general fund change in 25 through 27 is 46.6 million and 61,048. So that's a net spending. It's not savings. And that's because most of the bills that the committee has considered up to this point had positive targets. The negative targets will be the ones that follow later. So that leaves a budgetary balance of 1.554 in the 25 through 27 period and a negative 2.486 in 28 and 29.
Senator Pratt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that, Mr. Nauman. You know, I will commend the majority. I appreciate the budget targets and the attention that's being spent on the looming deficit. I think the Senate's taken a much more proactive approach. Mr. Chair, I also have a concern dealing with it's Article 3, Section 6. And it has to deal with the misclassification of fraud impact report. This bill was referred to taxes and did not go to tax and was never heard in taxes. When I look at the fiscal note, revenue says it assumes it will not be able to provide the information and data relevant to 1099 filings as required by this legislation. I think this is an important issue for the Tax Committee and the Department of Revenue to consider. So, Mr. Chair, I move that Senate File 2373 be referred to the Committee on Taxes.
Senator Pratt moves it. Senate File 2373.
Request a roll call.
Request a roll. Move be, as amended, be sent to taxes. And I do notice in the bill that it has on line 38, it says that the department may coordinate an analysis of the misclassification. It's not mandating them to do so. I assume you're figuring that's depending on what revenues are available?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, it's also was our understanding through discussion about this point in the Labor Committee that the Senate Tax Committee had declined to hear the bill, that they didn't need to hear it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, to the motion, my concern is that, again, when I look at the assumptions on the fiscal note on this bill, which was compiled after it was provided or heard by the Labor Committee, fiscal note was 4.3 and it was heard in the Labor Committee and referred to taxes on 4.1, that this information is not available. I'm concerned that we're requesting, mandating information in a report be collected and reported to the legislature when the department is telling us it can't do it. And I think it's for us to do good legislation and make sure that the Department of Revenue can comply with the statute that we're moving to the floor. That's what the committee process is for. That's why we have it. I've heard from members of this committee on the majority that the work has to be done in committee before it's done here at the Finance Committee, and yet we seem to be bypassing that step. So it would be prudent for us. There's no impact on deadline for this to go to taxes, and I think we need to get this worked out before it goes to the floor.
I have not heard anything from taxes on the bill, and I'm relying on what Senator McEwen is saying that the tax committee did not care to see it. And again, this is not requiring them to do the report. It's allowing them to if they can afford to do it.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to correct that actually in the A16 amendment, we did change the language on line 4.13 of the A16. We did change it back now that we do have a small allocation that goes toward that misclassification study, we did change the language back from may to must.
And that's with the funding you were providing in the other amendment.
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My concern is not with the funding. My concern is with the data that's available, and that we are requesting data that Department of Revenue is saying is not available to them. Revenue's data sharing agreement with the IRS prevents it from sharing this information. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Now, I'm not the tax committee and I don't have the policy piece of it, but this certainly seems to be more of a policy piece than a finance piece that revenue should look at. And if the tax committee has decided to not consider this bill, then they can simply move it to the floor in a very quick hearing. But it was never referred back to labor from taxes. There was never any discussion on the fiscal note and the concerns of the Department of Revenue in the tax committee, and I think it's prudent for us to do so.
Well, Senator Pratt, I feel that, you know, if that data is not available and they're not able to do it, then they will not be able to. I don't know the law on that. I'm not sure what they are. You're making your point. I would argue that this should not go to taxes, but you're suggesting it, so I guess that's it.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
If that data is not available and they can't comply with the statute that we are passing, then we need to change the statute so it's something that the Department of Revenue can comply with. I don't think anyone in this legislature wants our agencies not complying with the statutes that we pass post fact.
Senator McEwen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make sure that the committee is aware that it is our understanding that the tax committee made the decision to waive hearing the bill after the fiscal note was released and then in consultation with the Department of Revenue. And we, in the fiscal note, there was a statement that it would only be of, well, we have some information from the fiscal note here if you're interested in seeing that. Describe it very well.
Ms. Bursch, did you have any comments?
Yes, Chair Marty. So in the fiscal note for the first engrossment of Senate File 2360, which was the original bill that this language came from, the Department of Revenue noted that it would not be able to provide information and data relevant to 1099 filings that's required by the legislation if that information is provided to revenue by the IRS rather than the taxpayer. But they also noted that the availability of that 1099 data would likely be of only nominal use in determining overall misclassification estimates. So they don't have the data available, but it also would likely not contribute a significant impact to the estimates that are required.
Further discussion. Senator Pratt has moved Senate File 2373 as amended be referred to the tax committee. And he asked for a roll call on that. Is there any further discussion? If not, the staff will take the roll.
Senator Marty?
No.
Senator Friends?
No.
Senator Pratt?
Yes.
Senator Champion?
No.
Senator Dames?
Yes.
Senator Draheim?
Yes.
Senator Howe?
Aye.
Senator Jasinski?
Yes.
Senator Mohammed?
No.
Senator Murphy?
Nope.
Senator Pappas?
No.
Senator Wickland?
No.
There being 5 ayes and 7 nays, the motion does not prevail. Is there further discussion on Senate File 2373? If not, Senator Friends, Senator Friends moves to lay Senate File 2373 as amended on the table. This would be presumably merged with the jobs bill in a few days. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion prevails. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Senator McEwen. Thank you, Ms. Bursch. We are, I wanted to announce we're moving the start time for tomorrow's meeting till 9 a.m. when we're taking up the legacy bill. Being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.